4 under Supervisor Pachegian, discuss and give direction to staff regarding the Fresno County Board of Supervisors position on the California High-Speed Rail project.
All right. Folks that were here 2 weeks ago heard my introductory comments, but I feel the need to restate them. Anything having to do with high-speed rail is a very passionate subject for a lot of people, both for high-speed rail and obviously against high-speed rail. The purpose today is to discuss a resolution. Item number 4, which is now becoming number 3, is sponsored by Supervisor Debbie Pachegian, and we're going to have a format that we need to honor those that have travel distances to be here, the folks that have come out to be here today to speak and take advantage of public comment. But I would ask the following format be followed: that we have a principal from the High-Speed Rail Authority, and we have a principal that is involved in the challenge, and that the former is the High-Speed Rail Authority appointee representing the Valley, Tom Richards. Is Tom, you still here? There he is. We're going to give you 8 minutes, up to 10, but please, if you can keep it to 8 minutes, that would be most appreciative for opening segment. And Mr. Brady, Mike Brady, you'll be given the same amount of time. Once we have the comment period for those 2 individuals, we will then open it up to public comment. I would ask that folks fill out a card, submit it to the clerk to the board, and when your name is called, proceed to the lectern. But in the interest of time, 2 weeks ago we spent, how many hours?
4 hours.
It was a long one. We heard a lot of public comment. What I'm asking, though, is if folks have spoken before, unless there's some new information or a compelling desire to express yourself, allow that time to be taken advantage of by new individuals wishing to comment. Of course, I cannot stop anyone from making a public comment or taking advantage of this opportunity, but please respect the time that other folks have concerns with. Madam Clerk, we will set the timer for public comment at 3 minutes, and I would like public comment. Our goal should be that public comment be within 30, no more than 40 minutes. That would be the goal. So with that being said, are there any pre-discussions by the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say that this item has been continued from 2 weeks ago, contrary to what you might have read in the local paper. It didn't die 2 weeks ago. It was continued till today to give board members an opportunity to get more information. Also, I would ask that for people that are going to comment that did talk last time, please be respectful of everybody's time and try to keep your comments regarding the agenda item. That's all I would ask.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
With that being said, I would like to invite Tom Richards to the lectern. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I also want to add a special thank you to each of you for having agreed to hold this over so I had an opportunity to be here. As I think you know, I was out of the state 2 weeks ago. It will not be my intention today to readdress anything that Jeff Morales had presented to you last week. I would also apologize on our and his behalf. The last I talked to him was about 2 this morning. He was still awaiting a flight in Chicago, and so he's been unable to be here today. And to the extent that you expected him to be here, I apologize for that. I also am happy that we were able to clarify one thing that was of concern last time, and that was a response to a letter requesting information from us in 2012, and I think that you've now received a copy of that. It would be disingenuous to tell you that we have not and do not appreciate the support that you have given this project over these last years. I would commit to you that we have worked hard, certainly since I've been on this board, to not only have earned it, but to retain it and to ask for it in the future. My involvement on this board comes with some caveats, and I think you would expect this of me. I would not stand up here before you today if I didn't believe in the validity of this project as it has morphed over these last couple or 3 years. I had an opportunity 3 years ago when I was, by the way, appointed by Governor Schwarzenegger, and one of the last things he did as governor, which I'm not sure what that actually means, but probably that he didn't really care that much about me, but certainly didn't want to stand next to me. But at any rate, I am proud to have been reappointed by this current governor, and as I started to say, in 2011, when Governor Brown came to Fresno for a Maddie Institute affair, I had the opportunity to sit next to him for lunch. During the course of the discussion, he queried me quite a lot about high-speed rail, and specifically issues as to why he ought to support it. I'm not going to suggest to you that it was because of my answers that he then went to the Fresno Bee editorial board and endorsed it, but I did make a promise to him. And that was, I didn't join this board to wave the flag. If I did not believe in this project, where it was going, or if it needed fixing, how it could be fixed, I would be the first one to tell him and offer my resignation. And I would suggest to you early on that was a consideration. But what I am here to report is that the progress that we have made in this last 3 years, I think, is reasonably astounding. And I think to some great extent it has to do with the leadership that this governor has provided for this project. And the leadership is characterized by the selections that he's made for appointments for our board, for the instructions and direction that he's given this board, which has allowed us to do the things that I think were missing in a project that was ramping up very quickly as a result of Proposition 1A in 2008. A project that when I came on board had a total staff, including a CEO, of 17, to try to manage a multi-billion-dollar project, arguably the largest infrastructure project in the history of California. He not only directed us, but gave us the capacity to build that staff. And the person that you listened to a couple of weeks ago, Jeff Morales, I think was an incredible choice that we made after doing a national search. We have since then built a staff and management that is more than capable of meeting the challenges of this project. With the new leadership, we've gone in a number of different directions. But I would submit to you that based upon our advice and our sincere belief, the directions we've gone are consistent with the requirements of Proposition 1A. The project development has involved a number of things, but from my perspective, two of the most important were feasibility and financial modeling, because I wasn't convinced at the outset that it was feasible. And secondly, I was really concerned not about the lack of financial modeling, but the reliability of that modeling. And so early on, after we had a new chair, Dan Richard, who I think at some point or another you all have met, and other selections that the governor made, one of the things that Dan did was he appointed a Finance and Audit Committee. The two people he appointed to that committee were Mike Rossi and myself. I think I walk in Mike Rossi's shadow. This is a gentleman who retired as the vice chair of Bank of America Corporation and who was the chief risk manager for Bank of America worldwide. So what he did, along with other things that we did together, is we assembled a finance and audit staff that I would put up to any government agency anywhere. And we challenged them with reporting requirements that I don't think typically government sees. The information that we generate from that Audit and Finance Committee, I would put up against anything at any publicly traded company in this country. and I'm really proud of it. The modeling we did to move us from where we were 3 years ago to now is why I can stand here and say that I believe in the project, I believe in its feasibility, I believe in the ridership, and I believe in the ability to finance it. Since then, what we do is we provide policy and oversight for that committee, but what we employed was a modeling, a very complex computer modeling system called Monte Carlo. The Monte Carlo provides that we input millions in some instances of permutations to come up with every conceivable alternative based upon conditions that are incorporated into the software. I think it's about as sophisticated as you will find in the country and perhaps the world. That's the modeling on which we base the ability to come to you and tell you that we believe this project is feasible. It's presented to the legislature, the governor, the people of California. With regards to the financing, you're aware of where we are today. We have $6 billion in combination of federal funds and state funds. In addition to that, we have recently been the recipients in the current budget of funding into the future of cap and trade. I could argue that maybe that wouldn't have been the best alternative if we had an alternative, but what I would tell you is that I will take the certainty of that income stream over the course of the cap and trade initiative in California as opposed to nothing. Because one of the biggest challenges we've had with the private sector is not that we expected this private sector to step into this project now, because it's premature, and I'll explain why in a moment. But because of the lack of some continuity in cash flow generation, that was one of the big problems we were always told when we talked with people in the private sector who are involved in multinational infrastructure projects, as well as people who are on Wall Street in the financial industry. The result of cap and trade has already led to a number of inquiries. Admittedly, it's not a massive amount of money. The expectations after this year are about $1 billion a year. But when you consolidate that $1 billion with what we've got, and the expectations that what we believe that we are able to sell the franchise when we've got an initial operating segment, when we can sell the franchise for the private sector operation of high-speed rail, it's about another $20 billion. Those numbers are numbers that have been corroborated with our modeling and with discussions in the financial services industry. So it's really quite a statement to make at this point where we are in this project, that I think that we are able to stand up here and tell you that we are able to define over 50% of the financing for this project. What we have always committed, and we still commit, that is we will never start any section of the construction of the project without having the funding fully identified. That's what we're doing in the Central Valley with roughly 130 acres. I see that I'm running over, so you started at 7, right? I thought I'd be 3 or 4. So here's what I would say to you, and I certainly can elaborate on these things, but obviously I'm standing here as a proponent of this project. Another way of putting it is I am an advocate. Didn't necessarily think I was going to be, but I have become an advocate. Those people who are representing the opposite side, Mr. Brady, I would expect him to be an advocate for his position also and for his clients. What I would encourage you to do is certainly listen to what he and I have to say, but I would ask you to listen to those who have no skin in the game, so to speak. Look at what the reports from the Governmental Accounting Office have concluded, from the Legislative Analyst's Office, from the Department of Finance, from the State Division of Audits, from the Legislative Council, and from the peer review group. We were disastrously reported on when I joined this board. We are not disastrously reported on any longer. In fact, what the GAO found is all of our modeling, all of the conclusions were reasonable and understandable relative to an infrastructure project of this size and consistent with what would be expected. Let me just say a couple quick things on Proposition 1A. Proposition 1A went to the public, or to the voters, and in the document, it indicated a cost of $33 billion. That was for what was referred to as Phase 1 from the Transbay Terminal in San Francisco to LA Union Station. That was not inflation adjusted. We determined when we were working on the modeling, Mike Rossi and myself, we would not propose anything that was not inflation adjusted because we thought it was somewhat disingenuous, certainly misleading. The number that you see that we put out at $68 billion is inflation adjusted. If you do the same thing that I do in my construction business, and that is I don't care necessarily what the current inflation factor is, I simply use 5%. I've found that over the course of 30 years that's been pretty reasonable. If you inflate $33 billion at 5% in 2022, it's $68 billion. And if you take a look at a $50 ticket in 2008 dollars, it's in the neighborhood of 75 right now. So I'd say we're pretty much on line with where I would have thought we would have been in 2008. All I would tell you that with regards to transportation in California is that we clearly need to be doing something. We cannot continue doing what we've done in the 1900s. It will not work in the 21st century. The reality is that our freeway system was designed for 20 million people. We're now sitting at 38 on the way to 50. We cannot find enough land, or do we have enough money to deal with transportation in the traditional ways? The alternatives to high-speed rail, we believe, are 2 to 3 times its cost. Air quality is not helped by the development of additional highways. In fact, you probably know that 6 of the 10 cities in the United States with the highest air pollution are sitting between Bakersfield and Modesto. And if you add LA, there's a 7th one here in California. Over 20% of our children have asthma when they're in elementary school. We've committed to a net zero construction emissions program in this project, even though we're criticized often for creating massive amount of emissions during construction. I would only complete by saying something. I recognize my responsibility is to represent the state of California and the voters. It's very difficult not to take a very hard look at our own Central Valley. The reality is I don't see things any better today than, in fact, I'd say I see them worse than when I moved here as a young adult. What I would suggest to you is we need jobs, which we don't have. We can't live off the backs of agriculture forever. We cannot live off of taking agriculture land out of production. The project up in Merced, between Madera and Merced, took 1,300 acres on the expansion of 99. Between Fresno and Bakersfield, we need 4,500 acres out of 6.2 million acres of agricultural land.
Please.
Thank you.
No, if you'd like to sum up, Mr. Richard. Would you like to sum up?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to sum up?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you just wanted me to get out of here.
No. We're not with Gestapo tactics today.
The quiet back here was deafening. So, I would only say something because quite clearly, I mean, ag is a major concern for us. Anybody who's impacted by high-speed rail is a concern for us. Our number one priority is doing the best we can to ensure that those people impacted by this system are left whole on the other end. Thus far, I know a lot of it has not been announced yet. We're doing a very good job of that. With ag, I think that this is the most viable alternative to urban sprawl that we've got. And urban sprawl is, in fact, the biggest challenge we've got to ag in this valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mike Brady. Madam Clerk, if you could reset the timer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors. Happy to be back here today. In response to Mr. Richards, he says that there has been astounding improvement in the last 3 years. Well, your letter was written 3 years ago expressing some concerns, and the theme of my remarks last time was the serious deterioration that has occurred, not the astounding progress. Mr. Richards refers this morning to the LAO, the Legislative Analyst's Office, and the State Auditor as praising the program. That is simply not true. From the very beginning, back 6 years ago, the LAO has constantly said this program poses grave financial risks to the state of California and to its counties because of the lack of adequate financing. The simple fact is that the High-Speed Rail Authority from the very beginning has said we're going to get 17 to 18 billion, 17 to 18 billion from the federal government. We're going to get at least 10 billion from private investors, and the rest is going to come from Proposition 1A, and we're in great shape once that happens. Now, that was all said some time ago, and since then, there has not been astounding progress. There has been astounding deterioration because all the federal money has stopped. Even Mr. Morales on the 15th of July finally had to admit that, yes, there is no more federal money coming. No more. And then the private investor situation, which Mr. Richards refers to this morning, is very interesting because from the very beginning of this project, there was this broad promise by the authority, private investors will be flocking to this project. They're excited by this. And yet no private investor has ever come forward. Never in 6 years. The proof is in the pudding. And they are desperately depending on those private investors. Why won't the private investors come? Because the project is a monetary loser. They might come if the state would guarantee the revenue, give them a revenue guarantee, but when that was suggested by Mr. Pringle, an early chairman of the authority, the LAO stood up and said, oh, no, you don't. You can't do that. That's illegal. That's a subsidy. And Proposition 1A forbids a subsidy for these operations. Now, I heard Mr. Richards this morning say that their modeling system is wonderful. They have this wonderful modeling system that they've spent hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on. Well, this is the same modeling system that has this train going 15 miles down the Tehachapi's at 225 miles an hour. Ridiculous. There is no braking system in the world that could stop a train like that. What passenger would get on a train like that? It's the same modeling system that has the train going through Fresno and Bakersfield at 225 miles an hour. And that caused such embarrassment to the authority that Mr. Richards had to make a public speech and say, we would never do that. We would just go through Fresno and Bakersfield at 80 miles an hour. And yet that modeling system, having the train go at these incredible speeds down a mountainside and through Fresno and Bakersfield and other towns in the Central Valley, they have to have that to meet the mandatory trip time in getting a passenger from Los Angeles to San Francisco in 2 hours and 40 minutes. These are simple examples of how exaggerated and how false their promises are, promises that they have to keep with the voters. I also heard Mr. Richards say how proud they are to have expanded from 17 on the staff to quite a few hundred now. They have a lot of people on the staff. And did you know they've spent nearly $600 million without a single bit of track being laid on all of these staff people, these consultants, these engineers? It's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? We've seen this many times with public works projects. They spend a lot of money on the people that just want the money to keep flowing. Well, unfortunately, in this project, the money has stopped. And remember, that the person in charge of monitoring the whole thing is this contractor Parsons Brinkerhoff, which was in charge of the big dig. Remember that? Goes from $3 billion to $22 billion. A scandal, a serious scandal. And yet that's the person in charge of this. So I'll make it short, finish a little early. I would simply submit that my remarks last time have been proven. I also don't see Mr. Morales' letters or anybody having given you letters. Remember the promised letters? Oh, we've got promises from private investors. They're now interested because of cap and trade. Where are the letters? They've had 2 weeks to produce them. And I doubt if when they're produced they'll have any firm commitment at all. And lastly, the LAO on March 27th, only a few months ago, testified to cap and trade. He said, this is not going to save the project. They have serious financial gaps. It provides about 1% of what they need to fill the gap. So I would submit that your resolution is in order and should be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. All right. Now that we've given the two principals an opportunity to speak, we will open this up to the normal public comment. I have a number of cards, and just to remind folks, if you wish to speak during this time, please fill out a card, bring it to the county or to the clerk to the board. And as a gentle reminder, we have to be mindful of our time. So for folks that have spoken before or wish to speak on ancillary topics to high-speed rail, please speak to the agenda item at hand, and a brevity will be most appreciated. Thank you. All right, starting off first, I have a card from James Ardice, Judge Ardice, followed by Buddy Mendez, followed by Larry Arce. Please forgive me if I'm misstating the name.
Arce.
Arce.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is James Ardice. I am on the board of the Fresno Rescue Mission, and I'm here on their behalf. As you may be aware, I'm a retired judge, and I now have my own private practice in Fresno. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today on this critical issue for our community, our valley, and our state. Having lived in the Central Valley of California virtually my entire life, I am acutely aware of the problems that face this valley, particularly air quality. But I am also acutely aware with respect to this project that it will disproportionately affect some in our community. And what concerns me is that the Fresno Rescue Mission provides critical services to our community. We help feed the homeless. We help families in need. We provide a woman's shelter. We provide for drug and alcohol rehabilitation. And while many people do not realize it, we also provide a place at night for sex offenders who are homeless to sleep in order to help protect our community. But our services do not serve the rich and powerful. We serve the economically disadvantaged. And over the years, we have built a significant facility to accomplish that. The proposed high-speed rail goes straight through that facility. Where do we go? What do we do? And what does our constituency do when our land has been taken? When we met with high-speed rail people, they made it clear they want to take our land. And there's no question in my mind under eminent domain law they can do that if they want to do that. But I asked a simple question. If you take our land and high-speed rail does not come to fruition, what will happen to our land? The answer was that if that happened, they would sell our land. Well, I understand that, but where do we go? What do? We do not provide a service that everyone wants in their backyard for understandable reasons. And that becomes the serious question for you. Just as importantly, if we disrupt our program and our constituency, what is the assurance that they will be able to build this project? And that's my question to you today. There's one simple question, and we've heard numerous comments about it, and we've all read about it, and that is simply this. When high-speed rail was proposed and the proposition was proposed, representations and promises were made as to how it would be accomplished. Those promises which induced the people of the state of California to vote for this cannot be kept. It is as simple as that. Even high-speed rail acknowledges that. And while I appreciate Mr. Richards' comments, the promise was $33 billion, not $68 billion, and if the people had been told that, they would have approached it differently. It cannot travel at the speed that it was promised. So let me just say that the question before you today is, if they cannot keep the promise that they made to the public, then what is the inevitability or the promise that this will actually be built? And if it is not built, what happens to us? And I think we should be assured that this can be built before they take our land away from us, our farmland, and land away from our constituency. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right. Buddy Mendez, Larry Arce, Steve Brandow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. Thanks for letting me speak before Steve. I appreciate that, Andreas.
It was luck of the draw.
I want to be very simple. Bonding money is borrowed money. We have to pay that money back. Let's not forget that. And just like if we were going to build a house or we're going to build a commercial building, we have to follow certain covenants. We have to follow certain covenants on private loans and certain covenants in public bond money. And I think it's very important that we follow the covenant of the bond. And if, which I believe, and it's been stated in the Toss Fukuda case by Judge Kenney, that they're not following the covenant of the bond, to me that is the most important thing. I know people need jobs, and there's people that just, the judge was just up here where are we going to have our rescue mission? We have both those things, but the real important thing is bond integrity, the covenant of the bond. And I ask the board to support Mrs. Pachigian's resolution, and also I think the amicus brief, which is coming up, is a very important thing. And I actually agree with your what you stated about it. So I thank you for letting me speak. I know a lot of people want to speak, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mendez. Larry Arce, followed by Steve Brandow, followed by Robert Morrissey.
I want to say thank you for allowing me to be able to come before this body and to be able to speak on behalf of the poor and the homeless and those that are in poverty. Since 1949, the Fresno Rescue Mission has made a tremendous impact in this community, helping those that have been disenfranchised, those that find themselves between the rock and a hard place and nowhere to go. And the situation is that over the years since 1949, we have saved this community and this county literally millions and millions of dollars by the work that we do each and every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As Judge Ardai spoke briefly and before me, he did mention the fact that where do we go as a Fresno Rescue Mission and who wants us in our community. That's an issue that's been a problem with all rescue missions across the country. In the past, we've been asked to go way out into the country, but that's not what works. Las Vegas did that. They put a $9 million facility outside the city there of Las Vegas, and nobody goes there. And so it's a $9 million white elephant that nobody even attends. So we need to be within the city proper. But where do we go? No business wants us there because of the perceived notions about the Fresno Rescue Mission and the people that we help in our community. And so we're really concerned as an organization, where do we go? And if the high-speed rail is right now at our front door, they've been talking to us, but they've been assuring us of a lot of things, but nothing's been written down, and we really don't have any assurances as to where we will go. So our real concern is, where do we go as an organization to be able to continue the work that we're doing to help so many people in the community by going by our front door and removing us? As the judge says, what's going to happen if it does go through the high-speed rail resolution? And I'm just concerned about the homeless people in our community and the continued effort that we're doing to help so many people. And I'm, as a board and as myself personally, I really wish it would be put to vote again. That might not happen, but I'm pretty sure if it was put to vote again, it would be a different story about the high-speed rail here in the state of California. And so, as far as the resolution and the things that have been brought up by Mr. Brady and Mrs. Pachigian, I think they speak for themselves, and anybody in their right mind would say, this is something we really need to reconsider. Thank you. God bless you.
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Arce, how does this affect your Rescue the Children project that you have up on Clinton and 99?
That also is being affected because of the Caltrans moving over the Highway 99 over about 100 feet. So it's taking a slice away from our property there. So we're being affected twice, not only just here downtown in G Street, but also in the facility. We spent about almost $6.5 million in renovating the facility, getting it all set, getting it ready. And because of that, they're taking away part of our property to be able to go in and put in an access road, taking away part of our frontage road that's going to be completely done away with. So it's having quite an impact for us. And so this high-speed rail is impacting a lot of the folks that really need the help.
Thank you. City of Fresno, Council President Steve Brandow.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. I'm glad to be back in front of you again. What that really means to me is I'm glad that you're addressing important issues in our community, and both times you've had a packed house, and so that shows that it's a very important issue. As I spoke last time, Supervisor Case McNair, you had a question for me right as I was wrapped up, and I don't feel like I did a really great job. You asked me about businesses in Northwest Fresno, where I am the council member, and so I have a list today of the 30 businesses that are impacted in Northwest Fresno, and I really wish I had time to follow up with businesses all throughout the track line, but I really haven't been able to. But I can speak to these businesses. I would like to say some very positive remarks about what the authority has done in Northwest Fresno. Through the EDC and Leanne Ager and her team, they really have approached these businesses. Now, I hear what Reverend Arce is saying about his business, and we still have some businesses with concern. Out of the 30, there are about 8 businesses who are still in some level of concern as to their future. So I just wanted to answer more directly about the businesses that I know about in Northwest Fresno, and I'm hoping that those 8 will be satisfied one way or the other with the outcome. Then I would like to talk today about this project. I'd like to compare it in the next 60 seconds to a project that the city is doing, and then and there's great overlap in these two projects, the way the projects are, but there's some big differences that I'm going to end with. We are right in the throes in the city of Fresno of trying to deal with water infrastructure issue. And our team, just like your team and High Speed Rail, have looked at this and said, we need infrastructure in the city of Fresno, and we need transit infrastructure in the state of California. And I agree with Tom Richards when he says that. In the city of Fresno, we need water infrastructure. And we began the process of putting together this package that showed everything that we need in our city. But every item is determined what its price will be and also where that money will come from in the city of Fresno. It's a $410 million project, which is huge for our city, but every dollar of that $410 million is scheduled out. We know where it'll come from. Bonding, a ratepayer increase, these types of things. And even with that, there's some dissatisfaction in our community that are putting pressure upon us to double check everything because these dollars are valuable. And maybe even let the voters weigh in, although in effect they weighed in on my election and the election of council members that came up with this idea. There's even some members that are saying, let the voters speak to this again, okay? In conclusion, there's a major difference between the high-speed rail project and that infrastructure project. And that one, every dollar is spoken for. This project, there's very little percentage-wise of those dollars for this project that are identified where they're going to come from. That leads to a problem. I think even more than the city of Fresno, the voters should have a chance to weigh in on this high-speed rail project. I am in support of Supervisor Puchigian's resolution today. I'm also in support of Supervisor Borges' amicus brief motion, and so I want to thank you for the time today.
I have a question for you, President Brando.
Yes.
The city of Fresno right now is moving forward on the opening of the Fulton Mall and BRT, and you don't have all funding secured for those two projects. Why are you moving forward on those projects?
Well, on the Fulton Mall, for the opening of the street, we have all of that money identified. Okay? Then all the city of Fresno is going to do is deliver an open street. And then the private sector is going to have access to that street unlike it does now, and so we'll be able to move that street forward. So that money is for the opening of Fulton Mall is our responsibility, and we have all of that money identified. On bus rapid transit, that money also, so on bus rapid transit, I voted against that project and I was outvoted. So I have concerns on bus rapid transit, very similar to the concerns I have with high-speed rail. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisors.
Okay, Robert Morrissey, J.D. Bennett, Dallas Debaton.
Good morning, Supervisors. And thank you for extending this period for comments. I don't really take the train very often. My wife does. She visits our children in Knights Landing and Sacramento. Occasionally she goes other places, but I'm not in favor of taking a train so much as driving. I'm a Californian. I don't see that it's easy to do. I'm not good at keeping schedules, and I get late, and it's a lot more stress on me, so I just prefer to drive. And as I'm hearing, we're way past the projected cost on this. It's very obvious, and why spend money that we could spend on roads? I'm tired of getting bumped and doing alignments. A lot of that money could just really make some good roads, and we do have good roads, but they need repair, and that's where I'd prefer to see the money go. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sirs and ma'ams.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. Mr. J.D. Bennett, Dallas Debaton, and Sevak Kachadurian, or Sirak? I don't know. Man or woman.
Good morning. Member Flannery.
Aye.
Mr. Richards conceded and actually seemed a little bit excited about accepting funds from cap and trade. This was not a condition of Proposition 1A. Not one condition of Prop 1A has been met at this time. The High-Speed Rail Authority has propagated lie after lie. Although as a concept, I believe high-speed rail is a great idea, it's not what we the voters voted on. Mr. Richards also stated we cannot rely on agriculture to fund our future. I beg to differ. Ag has been a source of revenue for this valley. It still is a revenue for this valley, and it's projected to continue to fund the Central Valley. My question is, will the City of Fresno and the County of Fresno continue to allow high-speed rail to bully them into doing their project that hasn't met the conditions of Proposition 1A? When is the High-Speed Rail Authority and its agents going to quit lying to California citizens? And to just touch real quickly on the Fresno Rescue Mission, I think it's an absolute atrocity that the state of California would take a project like that through another project that's been helpful to a community. And I can't see that the City of Fresno or the County of Fresno should stand by and allow that type of bullying to projects within our city, within our county. I think it's an absolute atrocity, and I would ask that you would stand against that and support Ms. Pachigian's resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Dallas Debatin, is that correct?
Dallas Debatin.
Debatin.
Close enough. Thanks for letting me address you today. 2 weeks ago, I was in Europe and took a high-speed train from Amsterdam to Budapest. It took 2 days. I could have flown it for less money and in 2.5 hours. And we got the same situation here, but that's beside the point. I live in a little neighborhood. We're going to be affected. Don't know exactly how bad yet, but we're going to be affected. I want to support the resolution and encourage you to file your brief. Thanks.
Out of sheer curiosity, why did it take 2 days? Did it break down?
And there was a couple of changes that had to be made, and it's high speed. When it's going, but it also sets.
Wow. All right. Thank you. Sirak or Sevak? Sevak. All right. Kachadurian, followed by John Hernandez, then Albert H. Perdon.
Good morning, Board, Mr. Chairman.
Hello.
I'm definitely in support of the high-speed rail project. Public transportation is a must in California. The freeway system is not the solution. What will happen to the freeway system in 50 or 100 years? Is the plan to make the freeways double-deckers? Just to let you know, the freeway expansion additions have huge hidden costs. In the Los Angeles area, a carpool lane was added on the 401 freeway to the 10 freeway, a stretch of only 10 miles, and the cost was $1 billion. That's $100 million per mile. I'm going to read you quickly an article in the Daily News. It says the massive 405 freeway widening project through the Sepulveda Pass is 12 months behind schedule and over budget by at least $75 million. Transportation officials said Thursday, causing more delays for commuters and headaches for local homeowners. The $1 billion carpool lane won't finish until at least mid-2014, officials said. Locals like Kelson have quietly criticized the addition of another freeway lane, stating that it's not a long-term solution to traffic congestion. For those who are opposing the high-speed rail and think that $68 billion is expensive, please do your math for the future additions of the freeway system. High-speed rail project will put Fresno on the map and will improve its transportation system, its business, its industry sector, and believe it or not, its tourism sector. Furthermore, high-speed rail is the only project that can revive downtown Fresno. We recently purchased the Security Bank building, the Helm building, and the Loftenberg buildings in downtown Fresno. Our decision was based on the California Senate, the House of Representatives, and the local jurisdiction's approval of the high-speed rail project. We may be pioneers, but I can assure you that there will be millions of dollars of investment from the private sector investors with whom I have contacts. Clearly, there is an immediate saving by not investing money in the high-speed rail system now. But that decision is very short-sighted, especially for a town like Fresno that is trying to reassert itself. The high-speed rail may benefit larger towns like Los Angeles and San Francisco marginally, but the true beneficiaries of the high-speed rail will be small and medium-sized towns. It will be a goldmine for Fresno. Let's grab it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John, if we could refrain from clapping, that'd be most appreciative. Mr. John Hernandez, Albert Perdon, followed by Tim Borker.
Thank you, Board. I'm John Hernandez, live at 5599 West Pinedale, and former CEO of the Central California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I want to discourage you from filing this particular brief, Chairman Borges. I really feel that's going to send a negative message to investors, just like this man who we're trying to attract to Fresno. I spent almost my entire adult career helping small businesses, trying to attract travel and tourism to this region. We have 3 national parks that the world want to see. We are in a position to be the first. The first. There is a big advantage on being first. You just asked Las Vegas and gambling. Just ask Silicon Valley about the internet. Being first is a big advantage. And I got a question from someone when I talked about that last time I was here, about being first. Well, there was government funding to being first. The whole idea of the internet was started because of ARPANET, which was designed for colleges, universities, and originally military. So these are things that we need to invest in as a country. We have to be competitive on a global scale. I think sometimes we in the Valley hurt ourselves because we think too local. We need to think more global. We feed the world, and now we have an opportunity to transport the world through the largest economy as far as a state in the Union, and we have a chance to lead. Filing this brief is a bad message to investment in downtown Fresno, investment into Bakersfield, into Kings County, and I know we have a problem with poverty. We have a huge problem with poverty and being poor. This whole district, or this whole area, has a problem with poverty. This is one of the solutions. We need to support this project. It's imperative. These types of jobs are good paying middle-class jobs that will be coming out of this district. I mean, this particular, I ran for Congress a while ago, so I keep on saying district. Sorry about that. No, but these are jobs that will feed families. I'm a son of a railroader. I had a lot of advantages being that, because I had an opportunity to go to college. All of my brothers and sisters, seven out of one railroad job, had opportunities. All of us graduated from high school. Not all of us graduated from college, but all of us had the opportunity to do that. It was because my dad had a good-paying middle-class job, And when we talk about funding, Eisenhower proposed the national highway system. He got inspired when he was in a cross-country trip in World War I, and then in World War II, when he went and saw the Autobahn. He saw what advantage transportation and connectivity can do for a country. We have that opportunity now. The highway system was only completed actually with I-70 back in 1992. It took us almost 50 years to build that highway system. So don't file this brief. I urge you to please send a message that Fresno's open for business. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Albert Perdon, Tim Parker, Jeremy Brownstein.
Good morning. My name is Albert Perdon. That's the Dutch pronunciation. That's fine. And the Central Valley pronunciation is Albert Perdon. I'm pleased to have a few minutes to talk to you. I did submit some paper to the board at the last meeting. I presented a PowerPoint presentation that provides an alternative strategy, alternative to what the High-Speed Rail Authority has proposed. The High-Speed Rail Authority is looking at a project, Phase 1 project, and they prepared a plan for a Phase 1 project. But the voters passed Prop A, which is not a Phase 1 project, it's an 800-mile project. And I think the voters are owed an explanation of how the 800-mile project is going to be funded, what the schedule is, and when operations are going to start. In fact, there's legislation in place that requires the High-Speed Rail Authority to do just that. I'm a civil engineer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a politician. I'm one of the people in California that builds things. We build cities. We build highways. We build transit systems. I used to work for the Southern California Rapid Transit District. I was assistant general manager. I oversaw the planning of the subway in L.A. I oversaw the construction of the subway. I worked for Caltrans, the highway department. I was an engineer on the I-105 freeway. That freeway went through a lot of properties. That freeway caused the displacement of thousands of residents, mostly minority. And as a result of that impact on the community, there was a legal resolution that was agreed to. Caltrans was pretty much out of the picture in resolving that. The lawyers took over and basically decided that they were going to accommodate this freeway, but they were going to limit the size of it and put light rail down the middle of it. That was a lawyer's solution to what is an engineering problem. It's a planning problem. And if you look at the green line that runs down the freeway, it carries 30,000, 40,000 people a day. It's a big failure. It requires massive subsidies. This project will have tremendous benefits to the residents of Fresno County. It deserves more time, it deserves more study, it deserves more discussion than you're able to provide at this meeting. I would offer to come down here at my own expense and spend time with the community and lay out the plan that I have proposed that shows how this project can be funded. It could be funded without any more tax subsidies. It could be funded without any federal support. But I urge you to take ownership of this project. It will benefit you tremendously. Don't leave it to the state or the federal government to decide your fate. It's in your power to make this project work for Fresno, and you should take that responsibility and take that opportunity to make sure that the interests of your community are served.
Thank you. Tim Barker, Jeremy Brownstein. And afterwards, I'm going to go through a list of other cards that identify an interest in speaking on item number 3, but I want to make certain that that folks didn't intend to actually speak on item number 4 in the old, with the old agenda item. So we'll go through that afterwards.
Good morning. Tim Barker, city resident. Have to respond to a couple people that were up here earlier. One, it was interesting that we had a lady from Orange Cove open the meeting today. Orange Cove, a farming community in Fresno County, is the poorest community in the United States. I've gone to school with many of the people from there. There's a frustration and desperation there. This project has the opportunity to change that. Also, I've done classes at the Fresno Rescue Mission Family Shelter for several years. That was several years ago that I did that. And I'm really shocked and dismayed at Reverend Darcy and the Rescue Mission. The reason people are there, lack of opportunity. It's not a convenient situation that should be perpetuated for them, and this is not a status quo situation. This city needs to move forward, and so does the Rescue Mission. So what's at stake here is that the no vote by this board can affect the 1,500. You're not stopping the project particularly, but what you are doing is sending the negative messages in this decision process. One of those, it's subject to being lost, is the 1,500 jobs at the terminal facility and the maintenance facility. 1,500 long-term, high-paying, quality jobs are subject to being lost, the same way that we lost the UC campus by political bickering and infighting and posturing. So one of the questions is that what has this board done to enhance the project? All I ever hear on the news is we're going to stop this, we're going to say no to this, we don't want this, we don't want that. The same thing is what I heard on television about 3 weeks ago. One of the supervisors here was on television in response to water rationing and water decisions. It was left at local measure, left to local districts. What I see again is lack of leadership, but political opportunity. About 40, 50 years ago, Fresno had the highest tourism rate in the state. What are we doing in this? This is a huge opportunity, and you people should be behind it, promoting this, that we, again, have that high tourism dollar, which is circulated 3 times through the city as a through point and a destination point. But I see nothing coming out of this board for any of that. I see the negatives coming out. And this is just by my observation on television. Your airtime is negative time. And so the same voices I hear are the same ones that shouted down the Coalinga Super Airport about 40, 50 years ago because it would change the nature of the jobs in the area. And also the Eisenhower arterial defense system highways was highly opposed when it was done. It took a very strong leader to push that through, and we can't imagine America without it now. But it used to be 2-lane roads across the country, and Eisenhower took the stand and the fortitude to promote that arterial defense system.
Thank you. Mr. Jeremy Brownstein.
Good morning, Board. I return not only as a resident of Fresno County, but also the board chair for the Fresno Chinatown Revitalization Inc. nonprofit, and also a social worker who works in a lot of communities here in Fresno County. I don't want to tell you that high-speed rail is a bad idea because it's a great idea. It's just been very poorly executed over the past few years. And our only way of knowing how this is going to go forward is to look backward at how our interactions have been with the authority. We have had so many interactions, we have asked so many questions, and we have received no answers whatsoever. We have had 4 businesses in Chinatown that have been relocated due to property that is in the way of the authority. 2 of those businesses are struggling at this point. 2 have been put out of business because of the low offers by the EDC and the authority. And so businesses have already been affected, and going forward we're going to see more of the same thing. I did send an email with information about a community meeting that we held in September of last year, where we offered individuals from the City of Fresno, the authority, and the EDC to answer the questions of individuals within our community. Most of those questions weren't answered at that meeting, nor were they followed up by the authority. This leads us to conclude that this plan is not the correct plan for this project. This isn't the correct team. We are concerned, as you've heard echoed with many individuals who not only have property but organizations and farmland, is that we don't want to lose our livelihood to a project that at this point appears to be going nowhere. There isn't enough money, there isn't enough leadership, there isn't enough structure to finish this project. We don't want our businesses, our lands, our properties taken and destroyed for a train that'll probably end up in Bakersfield. And so I ask you as a board not to decide at a state level if this project should continue, but please assess if this is what is going to be beneficial for the county at this point. And I would urge you to support this proposal, because this project at this point will do nothing but damage the county and the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a number of cards here that identify another item. I want to make certain that that folks are given the opportunity to speak on this one if they desire. It's a Mr. Ron Jones, a Maureen Fukuda, a Linda Doubles, an Alex Magrino, Michael Lomio, and a Ross Browning. Do any of those individuals intend to speak on this item? If so, this would be the opportunity. Okay, that will follow next. Anyone else? Sir? You're up? If you could now, your name, sir?
Ron Jones.
I'm sorry?
Ron Jones.
Ron Jones.
And I'll get the mic high up this time instead of the lamp. Good morning, Supervisors. Thank you for this opportunity to again speak about the very important issue for the Valley and State. I spoke representing the Train Riders Association of California, which is known as TRAC, at your last meeting. A couple speakers asked at the last meeting whether there is another plan that could serve the Valley and eventually the entire state. To answer that question, and for the benefit of everyone here today, to say clearly, TRAC developed its Plan B, and has been reviewed with state legislators, congressional representatives, environmental groups, and others in the transportation sector, receiving very positive reaction and encouragement. Proposition 1A is not needed to complete a 110-mile-an-hour system from Bakersfield to Sacramento, which would be considered high-speed rail by the federal government. This Plan B could be funded with available ERA, state, private rail, and other funding sources. This is being done in other states. This would eventually be tied to a high-speed rail connection to Los Angeles and San Francisco. As an example, in France, which Europe is quoted many times with, over 90% of the train riders in Europe ride Tier 2 or less service. 5 to 10% ride high-speed rail. This leads me to my final point. A court has already ruled that the high-speed rail project does not comply with the requirements of Prop 1A. Your vote today to support the Toss for CUDA lawsuit indicates you understand the importance of the following. If years of negotiations by a multitude of expert interests to develop the wording of this bond, a two-thirds approval by the legislature, and a majority vote of the people can be ignored, then how much can future bonds be changed from the voters' approval? These are the deeper issues being litigated, as well as many variations of the plan's implementation and the bond language. The point for your county, in particular for others, is whether we can trust the enforceability of bond measures. By appealing the lower court ruling, the governor is saying that the bond measure isn't enforceable. What if a decade-long effort puts a water bond on the ballot, and it says 30% goes to water development, and all sides agree? Yet after passage, a whole new set of officials come in and change that to 10%. And when this imaginary executive director is asked, does the change follow the will of the people, the interest groups in the legislature? The reply is not yes. The answer is, but it does a lot. In addition, answer goes on, there is also a precedent set for such a change by a project five-fold as large. Next question would probably be the response. It is how we build trust in the state to keep people from either leaving or wanting to break it apart. Is that how we do it? Will it all be our children wanting to do that as well? And where does that stop? The right decisions now will build not only a better infrastructure for them in the future, it will build trust. The battle is this project is all about trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Any names on that list that I read off that wished to speak? This would be the opportunity, unless you want to wait for the next item. And this is the last call for any member of the public wishing to comment on this item. Please fill out the card and bring it over to the clerk to the board. This is the final call. Did you fill out a card, sir? Yeah.
Lady, she's right here. She's in front.
Yeah. Well, why don't we let ma'am? Thank you. If you could introduce yourself.
Hi, Maureen Fukuda, Kings County, 895 Laura Lane, and I believe the associate here will be passing out something that I ran across. I'm the historian for the grassroots organization in opposition to the program, the high-speed program in Kings County, and I ran across this thing, and I was at the last meeting, and this is it. It's from your local newspaper, the Fresno Bee. It's called Catching Up, Valley Week in Review, High-Speed Spending. What happened? The Fresno Bee, as part of the project of California Watch, examined California High-Speed Rail Authority's 15-year budget history and current consulting contracts, and found that the state will have spent about $630 million before the first spade of dirt is turned. This was written July 17, 2011. That's quite some time ago. What it means, consultants and contractors have reaped most of the money, but the state oversight agency repeatedly has cited problems. Contract payments made without verifying that work actually was performed, payment of services or equipment not covered in consulting contracts, and a lack of policies and procedures to review invoices and payments. What the reader said, number one, should anybody really be surprised? This isn't the first time the government has been very wasteful with our tax dollars. This folly trolley will be one big train wreck, offered by DK 1000. Number two, I would like to believe that the high-speed rail will be one of those projects, such as I-5 or Highway 99, that we look back 20 years from now and say that we are glad we did it. However, I believe that the greatest accomplishment of the high-speed rail project will be to teach Californians how dysfunctional the state's legal, environmental, and development system is. We are getting a first-hand and seat-pocket look at why project developers place a nice red X on this state, offered by DEUS. Number 3, I think most people at least can agree that the current regime that is running the program is not doing a respectable job with our public funds. We are to move forward with this project. I think we need to hit the big reset button and wipe this current program staff out. The only thing that they have to show so far for the mega millions they have spent is poor developed reports and dismal outreach and assessment programs. The $3 billion from the federal stimulus funds were meant for shovel-ready programs. The authority was not ready for this project. However, told D.C. the typical lies that they tell everyone to make them believe that they had their act together. Now they are trying to carefully craft a bunch of poor reports into a project, shove it down the throats of Central Valley, and script together the largest public work project in the nation. I'm an ex-biology teacher. Started at Madison Junior High on Brawley Avenue. Loved it. Loved every day of it. I always put a quiz on my I finished my career in Hanford, and I always put a little cartoon on all quizzes. And so I have put a little cartoon on this for you as well. And it's about a boy who got a 73% on his biology quiz. He's so thrilled he hugs his mother. But his friend said, wait, isn't that 73% like a C minus? And the boy says, life is marketing. I'll be very honest, I'd be hard-pressed to give this program even a C minus, maybe a D plus. And in closing, I would ask you to support the proposals today. You asked 12 questions, and I advise you, when you get the answers, that, as the cartoon says, they will be based on marketing models. And I liken that to the medicine men at the carnivals that used to sell snake oil.
Thank you.
And they said that was a cure-all. And that's what this program is doing. They're selling you snake oil as a cure-all.
Ma'am, thank you.
Has it ever worked?
Thank you. All right. Do we have any other cards, Madam Clerk? We have this young gentleman, and come on up to the lectern. Anybody else?
Hello, I am Michael Lomian. I am the co-founder of I Will Ride to East Merced, which is also a grassroots organization. Today I want to first convey my frustration with the lack of alternative modes of transportation I have to take home or to travel around the state. We can take Amtrak, which is painstakingly slow, or we can drive. Although I have found UC Merced is a joy to attend, I can't help but sometimes feel isolated. High-speed rail will help to alleviate this problem, and that is just one of many reasons why I'm in support of high-speed rail. I would also like to remind the board that the high-speed rail is a gold mine, and the city of Merced wants to grab it and all the jobs it comes with too. To end, I will leave you with the Chinese proverb: one generation plants a tree, so the next generation can use its shade. I hope one day my generation can build high-speed rail, so the next can enjoy it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alex Magrino. I'm also with I Will Ride, and I'm a UC Merced student. Just wanted to talk about the current situation in Merced in terms of infrastructure. We currently have, to get to Merced, you can take Amtrak, like you said, which is slow, or there's a 2-lane 99 highway going north-south, which is inconvenient for everybody on the coast. I think that this would alleviate that issue because we'd have this coming from San Francisco into Merced. Additionally, I think it creates a lot of tourist opportunity for Merced and for Fresno too. I think for myself in the future, I want to open a small business in Merced. I think this gives me the opportunity to have people come through. I think that this is a gold mine, like Michael said, that if we don't grab it, somebody else is, and we're just going to be SOL, and we can't have that. Thank you for your time.
Is that colloquial, SOL? Actually, Alex, the name of your friend who spoke earlier, what was his name?
Michael Lomeo.
That's it. Just want to make sure I got the card. All right. I think we have, our last speaker is Art Valles. Valles?
Thank you, Board, for hearing me today. I must say I did not come prepared to speak on this other than what I feel from inside and from how important this project is. I speak in favor of, I speak against turning your support against this rail project. This rail project is huge. I represent the carpenters in this area out of 701 at Fresno, Kings, Madera, and Tulare counties. Just this week, we're starting a pre-apprenticeship class that is preparing ourselves and our community members as apprentices for this project to get started on this. We will have up to 25 new apprentices come available after a 6-week program. And we are preparing ourselves for every 3 to 5 months to have these classes continue in preparation for other projects as well, but for this project. It is a huge economic engine to get this county, to get this area, to get this whole valley started. I am an implant. I am not a native Californian. I've been in a lot of different areas. 35 years ago, when I started my career in Las Vegas, I remember them talking about the high-speed rail. If any of you have ever gone down the road from Vegas to LA, if the road was flat, it would be lighted with vehicles. There's not enough roadway. I've been here for 23 years. I heard us trying to get 3 lanes on 99. It's been going on for at least 15 years. We are still not completed. It was only last year that we stopped those 2 intersections from coming into 99. Why we can't get an interstate designation on it? Because there's no on-ramp or off-ramp. That's what they're trying to complete right now. It wasn't too long ago that you had a stop sign in where is
Livingston.
Livingston, thank you, going down the 99. How in the world do we ever expect to transport the people that we do? Just driving from Madera to Fresno every day is a challenge. Our population is not ceasing. It is still increasing. Where are the visionaries in this room? What we just talked about, it's amazing to me that 20 years ago, we talked about getting dams built in this area. You tell me who has not suffered now because of what is going on with the drought. Now, all of a sudden, farmers and labor and everybody's together that, yeah, we need the dam. That dam would take 5 years to build, 3 years to start if we did it today. So another 8 years, that we're, or approximately, I might be off on my numbers a little bit, but I am in construction and I understand how long they take. The reality is, are we going to suffer through another 8 years even before we have the opportunity to get something? This is huge. My dad used to work on the interstate. He was a blaster for I-40. I can tell you right now, you go through Arizona, if you didn't have those interstates, you would suffer. It's the same thing here. I hear opposition saying, why don't they go down the 5? The whole purpose of having this rail start here is to the economic boost that it would give us. Not even to mention the fact that the maintenance facility is another 2,000 jobs plus that would stay here. It doesn't leave. Construction doesn't start. I wish if I could, just as being the last speaker, if you would just give me a few minutes.
Please summarize. Thank you.
Yeah, I will try to summarize it. I would be highly in favor of continuing this project. Don't put your negative aspect on this and kill the opportunity that we may have to get this facility. Visionaries created this country. Ag did not start because somebody came across over here and said, I'm going to build a farm. The government opened up the door. My history tells me, what I got from my education is that the government opened the door and said, you work this land, it's yours. What is that? That's how it started. And now as we feed the world, we need to be the birthplace of high-speed rail. First is huge. Being the opportunity to have that, and this economy can coincide with the I'm trying to think of the internet community, I was thinking Silicon Valley, and ag. We have room in this California state. This state is huge. Why are we thinking small? Why are we not taking advantage of what the information that we've been given and get this project moved forward and quit being the naysayers to everything? Before I walked into this room, I heard that the resolution that was passed on breastfeeding, 20 years ago to 30 years ago was thought bad. It was given to us as it's no good. Now look how important it is. The realization is that we have to move forward.
Thank you.
There are things that we cannot let pass us by. We have, like I said, with the apprenticeship coming on, we have the opportunities to do the right thing.
Thank you, sir.
Where are the visionaries in this room? Please stand up and show your face. Thank you.
All right. That concludes.